So we're out here at Roach Harbor. We've been here since Wednesday. We've got our solar panels installed. We've had them in for about a month now. We put a pair of 200 watt sun power panels up top, replaced the factory 160 watt panel. Put a lot of thought and effort into the solar panels to try and size them and figure out what it was we really needed. I didn't know anything about solar power 6-8 months ago, so we started with upgrading the solar controller with the factory panel just so I could get better instrumentation. So I'm sitting there looking at the dashboard. So obviously I went heavy on the Victron stuff. Victron has great instrumentation. All their stuff works together. So I'm looking at my Servo GX, which gives me one dashboard that shows me the solar coming in and the energy going out that the batteries are consuming. So right now solar is giving me 289 watts. And the boat is consuming 152 watts, which means I've got 137 watts at 10 amps going into the battery bank. My battery bank's at 71% currently and is being charged while we're on the boat enjoying the day. The past statistics on solar, I am a believer in solar power today. I'll give you some examples here. The Victron stuff is great because you can use your phone just to access all the statistics. Today I've already gotten 620 watts. It's not even noon. Yesterday was 2.5 kilowatts. The day before that 2.68 kilowatts. The day before that 2.09 kilowatts. So that's 140 to 200 amps roughly a day getting off of that. We generally use about 1200 watts a day on the boat. So even if it's a cloudy, overcast day, we're still getting our needs met. On these super sunny days like this, I can fire up the hot water tank and get hot water and take showers in the boat every day. Takes about half hour, 45 minutes to run the hot water tank. Does take the batteries down. Solar obviously doesn't equal what the hot water tank takes, but it puts it right back in. And then the battery bank lasts us overnight. At peak, generally you don't see the 400 watts at peak. We rarely will see, 400 total. Like for example, 348 was our peak today so far, 311 yesterday, 313 the day before, 312 the day before that. But definitely being able to stay out on anchor longer, or pull into a marina and not need shore power. Most marinas have it. Some marinas actually charge extra for shore power. Not all of them do, but even if it's included, it's just nice not to have to run that shore power cable up and around and over on the boat every time you come or go. Just throw the dock lines off, leave, go fishing, and come back. And obviously it just means that I can stay at anchor a lot longer. So for doing the solar power upgrade, the rest of the video is going to show how we did the installation. I can tell you the worst part was mounting of the panel. Just the hardware, where to place them, drilling the holes to mount them, getting them up on top of the boat. The electrical side was the easiest. Upgrading the solar controller, we actually did in a video several months back. The solar controller didn't require any extra wires. I pulled the old one out, used the same wires there that plugged in. The one big difference was the factory controller had a pair of wires that went to the engine battery, which 10% of the solar went there, and then the other 90% went to the house battery on another pair of wires. The solar controller I put in was a Victron 100/30 MPPT controller. It only has one output to the house battery. So for the leads that went to the engine battery, I just pulled the fuse because I'm not using that wire anymore. And does that mean my engine and my thruster battery don't get charged with solar? It doesn't mean that at all, because the automatic charge relays that are already in the boat that bridge the engine and the thruster batteries to the house bank are still there, and they'll allow that charge from the house bank to bleed over to the engine and thruster battery. So they didn't lose anything by doing that. And it was all of about a half an hour worth of work to replace that solar controller. And then the mounting the panels was the worst part. And did I have to run cable for the second panel? Right, I get asked that a lot. No. So I hooked the two panels up in series. It makes it really interesting on electrical. This might be a little bit technical, but it's interesting to point out. I'll bring it up here and show you what I'm getting right now. So we look right now, I'm seeing 347 watts up top. which is 63.5 volts at 5.5 amps. That's the solar panel to the controller. That's because they're hooked up in series and they're 24 volt panels. The solar controller converts that high voltage and low amperage to the 12 volt DC that the batteries need. So for that same 347 watts, that's 13.14 volts at 25 amps. I'm getting 25 amps from solar to my house bank. The boat came with a 20 amp battery charger, right? That's how effective solar is. Firm believer in solar at this point. It definitely is meeting our needs and makes us energy independent when we're underway and out and about. Obviously we moor in a covered slip, so back in our home port I gotta have shore power because I got no sun that ever hits those panels. But once we leave our slip, we can go do whatever we want and use whatever we want. We don't conserve electrical on the boat. That doesn't mean that we leave things on we're not using. If we're not using it, we do turn it off. But other than that, if we want to run a water tank, we want to make a cup of coffee, run the microwave. LaZina bought some little mini waffle makers that are 350 watts. So run that all off the inverter. The wireless boat router I bought takes AC power. We run that off the inverter all day. Listen to the music all day, music and the radio all day. It's just a much more enjoyable experience not having to worry about running out of power on my batteries. And stay tuned, and the rest of the video is how we went and installed the solar panels. I'm going really slow and everything because otherwise I'm going to drop all my tools into the freaking water.
Yeah, whatever you need from me, let me know.
Just take my time. want to do is secure this and come back tomorrow and finish it.
See, that's what I'm gonna get all the time now. Martin said this, Martin said that. Remember what Martin said?
Alright, so for mounting the solar panels, I found these really cool clamshell mounts. They're stainless steel. Got one bolt, clamps around a 1-inch bar. They also make these for 7-inch. They make them for 1 1/4. We have 1-inch bars everywhere. So this just clamps around the 1-inch roof rack that's already up there. And it's got one stanchion, so that means there's 4 holes I got to drill in the solar panel, right? One for each 4 corners. The one thing to note with these is it came with an M6 bolt. It's metric, and it's Phillips. I don't know why they would do Phillips, because once the solar panel is here, the solar panel comes up like this, and the panel's right on top. So you don't have a way to get a screwdriver down there. It becomes really challenging. And on top of that, if you look, this is it bottomed out, right? The solar panel is really thin. It was really thin, so I need to go find shorter screws. So I went down to the hardware store. Pull this long guy out. And I replaced him with it's an M6 bolt, and I think it's 16 millimeters to go right in here. And because it's a hex head, it screws all the way down, so that way it'll be nice and tight. And now you can just put an open-ended wrench underneath it and be able to tighten it from the top. Makes it super easy to put in. So the other thing you're going to need to do a solar panel is you're going to need a way to connect it with an MC4 connector. The way the boat came from the factory is you've got 4 millimeter solar wire that runs up and pops out right behind the smokestack to get up there. And it's a wire that's about this long, and it's got some plastic fittings that screw into the module inside of the solar panel. You can't unscrew and pull those apart. You're going to have to cut the wires because inside that control box, everything's up there with some form of a glue, right, to protect salt water and everything from getting into all the electrical connections. So when you cut that, then you're going to have to put MC4 connectors, because any new panel you buy today is going to have an MC4 connector. You say, what's an MC4 connector? There's plenty of videos out there on YouTube of how to do this, but I bought this kit. It wasn't that expensive. I would say it's required. The main thing that you need is the crimp tool. This is so that you can get a good crimp on the MC4. None of this stuff, I want to say it was like 25 or 30 bucks. I bought the kit that's got the crimper with it. And then it's got 2 little wrenches that you use to tighten. And you also use these to take them apart if you have to separate the MC4 connectors. And the kit came with 6 MC4 connectors. You only need 1 pair, right? But I figured I'd probably mess one up and need at least a 2nd pair, and I wasn't wrong. So I ended up using 2. Just the way my life goes. Right, but the way these things work is there's a female and a male side of it. So these are what get crimped onto the wire. You basically just cut the wire back about 1/2 inch, lay this in there, use the crimp tool to crimp it down, and then you've got your male and your female connector. These come apart like this. So this slides on the cable, this goes in the cable. Then you take this guy who's crimped on, he gets stuck in here, and actually one of them goes one way, one goes the other. So then he would slide all the way in here, and then it would mate up to this, and then as you tighten it, it creates a waterproof seal for the MC4 connector, and then they get connected together. So generally speaking, I mean, the connectors actually say got a little positive sign on them to say this is, this is usually the positive, but you got to take that with a grain of salt, because remember, coming from the boat, it's going to be inverse because of how you connect them. I need the positive here from the panel to connect into a female on the other side, which technically would be the negative, right? So it's really not a positive negative, even though it says that it's coming off the panel, this will be the positive side, but the boat, they would be inverse. So, and I would always recommend double checking everything you do with a voltmeter. Make sure you don't get the polarity backwards on it. But that's how the MC4 connectors go. These things are super cheap and they're super easy to put on. This was probably one of the easiest parts of the whole project, was putting these connectors on. The reason I screwed it up, by the way, was these are not interchangeable between these, so you have to get the right one to go into which side. And I guessed wrong. 50-50 shot, so I ended up cutting off doing it again. And we have the new solar panel up. We've got, we ordered two of them, two 200 watt SunPower solar panels. They shipped us 2 panels. I kept them for a week and a half. They come super packaged. I don't want to open the packaging because they're fragile, don't lay flat kind of stuff. Then I went to open it, and the first one I opened was a 225 watt panel. So I was like, and that's 5 inches wider than the 200s, and I want them to be the same because I'm mounting an important starboard on the boat, so I want it to be symmetrical. So I got to mail the 225 back. They're mailing me the 200 watts, so I won't get the other 200 watt until Monday. So we went and we mounted the port side panel today, got that up with the MC4 connectors. We pulled the old panel off. The factory panel was actually a 160 watt poly panel, which I was pretty surprised. But anyway, we're going to end up with 200 watts. I'm going to hook them up in series, not parallel. I'm doing that on purpose. I don't have a shading problem up top, which would be the reason that you'd want parallel. And I want to keep the amperage low on the wire coming from the roof down, because I don't want to rerun that wire, right? So when I hook them in series, the voltage will double, but the amperage will stay the same. Because from the with the 2 panels, it'll put me at, I want to say it's about 90 volts total between the 2 at max. And the MPPT controller I have is rated to 100 volts, so I'm within spec there. And then on the DC side, coming from the solar controller to the battery, is 12 volt. At most I'll be able to get is 30 amps out of that, which is 350 watts or 360 watts out of 400 watts. So ideally, if I could have found a pair of 175 watt panels, that would have been best. SunPower had a pair of 175s, but they're square, not rectangular, and I wouldn't have a place to mount them. And I didn't want to do a pair of 150s, so I figured, if I have 400 watts, on a super sunny day, let's say max sun, then I've got, 40-50 watts that I can't use, which is okay. But when it's not as sunny and I'm getting partial, I will get, on an overcast day, maybe I get 200 watts instead of 160 or something of that nature. Having the extra panels up there. So, but looking forward to my second panel up there, hopefully within the next week or two.
That's what you wanted the tie wraps for. So are they hooked together?
Yep. Electrical's already done. The hard part was when we did the first one, I actually had to crimp the...
That's why that one took longer.
Yeah. And I had to measure which way, but I wrote down the measurements for the holes, so I was like, okay, I know where to drill them, how to space them.
When you learned that it's easier to screw them on when it's down on the ground.
I couldn't do that with the other one because I was spacing them out.
Yeah. Okay. Again, thanks for watching, and don't forget to like the video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell for notifications so you get notified when I upload a new video. And until the next video, stay tuned for more channel surfing.